Story: Millionaire husband brings his mistress to Fashion Week. Then his pregnant wife takes the runway as the brand's owner. Disclaimer: this story is entirely fictional and created for entertainment. All characters, companies, brands, business dealings, and events are invented. Any resemblance to real people, organizations, or situations is purely coincidental. Imagine being 7 months pregnant and watching your husband arrive at Fashion Week with another woman, at the very brand he still doesn't know you control. Would you confront him on the spot, or let him keep talking? Tell me what you would do, and stay with Claire, because one sentence on that carpet is about to change the meaning of everything Grant thinks he owns. By midnight, half of Manhattan would know Claire Holloway's name. Her husband was simply going to learn at last. Camera shutters rattled through the September night. Grant Holloway stepped from a black Bentley beneath the blazing white entrance of New York Fashion Week, adjusted his midnight tuxedo, and offered the waiting photographers the smile that had sold investors on bad ideas for 15 years. Then a woman's hand slipped through his arm. It wasn't his wife's. Sloane Mercer emerged beside him in a silver Aurelia gown, black hair swept over one shoulder, diamonds burning beneath the lights. 26. Beautiful. Fearless enough to wear another woman's husband like an accessory. Grant, over here. Who's your date? Where's Claire? That last question made him pause. 7 months pregnant, Claire Whitmore Holloway should have been home, according to Grant. Quiet, invisible, grateful. Instead, he smiled into the cameras. My wife is home, he said. Where she belongs. Sloane laughed. The microphones caught it. So did 30 phones. Within minutes, the clip was moving across social media. But neither of them noticed the blonde woman sitting inside the venue, 3 rows beyond the velvet ropes. Claire. Her ivory maternity dress curved softly over her 7-month belly. Champagne blonde hair fell against her shoulders. Under the runway lights, her blue-gray eyes looked almost silver. One hand rested over her unborn daughter. The other held a small black clutch. She had heard every word. Home. Where she belongs. Claire repeated it silently. Her baby kicked. I know, sweetheart, she whispered. Stay with me. Because Grant Holloway had spent 3 years teaching his wife how insignificant she was. Tonight, he was about to discover how expensive that mistake had become. Then Grant entered with Sloane. Applause followed them, not because anyone particularly loved Grant, but because wealth had a way of sounding like importance in rooms like this. Claire watched him approach. His smile disappeared. Claire. For half a second, something almost human crossed his face. Fear. Then arrogance covered it. What are you doing here? Claire looked up calmly. I was invited. Sloane's eyes moved from Claire's inexpensive-looking ivory dress to her belly. Oh, one syllable. Sharp enough to cut. Grant leaned closer. You should have told me you were coming. Would it have changed your date? His jaw tightened. Sloane smiled and deliberately threaded her fingers through Grant's. Don't make this awkward, Claire. Around them, conversation slowed. Phones tilted subtly in their direction. Claire could feel strangers waiting for tears. She gave them none. Grant glanced around, embarrassed not by his mistress, but by his pregnant wife's presence. This is an important night for me, he whispered. Please don't create a scene. Claire almost smiled. For him. That was the tragedy. Everything was always for him. Then Sloane stepped closer. You really shouldn't be here. Claire's gaze lifted. Why? Sloane gestured toward the runway, the couture, the photographers, the impossible luxury surrounding them. Because women like you don't belong in rooms like this. Silence. Claire looked around slowly. At the lights. At the runway. At the enormous gold Aurelia emblem above the stage. Then she looked back at Sloane. No, Claire said softly. I suppose we'll find out who belongs here. Grant exhaled impatiently. He didn't notice Evelyn Price watching from backstage. He didn't notice the head of security touch his earpiece when Claire crossed her legs. And he certainly didn't notice Claire open her black clutch for half a second. Inside lay no lipstick. No invitation. Just a matte black credential embossed with 4 words Grant Holloway had never imagined could belong beside his wife's name. Claire Whitmore Holloway. Owner, Aurelia Fashion Group. Claire closed the clutch. The runway lights went dark. 3 years earlier, Grant Holloway still knew how to look at his wife as if she were the only woman in the room. Back then, there were no Bentleys waiting downstairs. No photographers. No private tables in Milan. No Sloane Mercer. There was only a narrow Manhattan apartment, takeout cartons on the kitchen counter, and a man with more ambition than money. Claire had loved him there. "You'll build something extraordinary," she once told him. Grant kissed her forehead. "We will." Claire remembered that word. We. It disappeared shortly after his first million. Then came dinners where he corrected Claire's clothes before they left. "Maybe we're the black one." "What's wrong with this?" "Nothing. I just need you to look the part." Claire always wondered which part he meant. Wife? Accessory? Proof that Grant Holloway had finally arrived? What he never understood was that Claire had grown up around the kind of wealth he was desperately trying to imitate. She simply never worshipped it. Her late grandfather, Arthur Whitmore, had built a private investment network around luxury manufacturing, textiles, and European fashion houses. Claire inherited his controlling interests years before she met Grant. She never told Grant the scale of it. Not because she was ashamed. Because Arthur had taught her something Grant never learned. Money gets loud when insecure people touch it. So Claire kept hers quiet. When she married Grant, she protected the inheritance through trusts, holding companies, and agreements prepared long before their wedding. Grant signed every disclosure his attorneys placed in front of him. He barely read them. At the time, Claire thought it was trust. Years later, she understood. It was arrogance. Then she became pregnant. The test showed 2 pink lines on a rainy Tuesday morning. Claire cried. Grant lifted her off the bathroom floor and spun her around until she laughed. For 3 weeks, he touched her stomach every night. By month 4, his hand stopped reaching for her. By month 5, his business trips doubled. Paris, Milan, London, always fashion-related, always urgent, and always, somewhere near the edge of a photograph, there was the same woman. Sloane Mercer. Claire first saw Sloane's name on a hotel receipt forwarded to their shared household email. 2 suites booked, 1 ultimately used. Claire printed it and said nothing. Then came restaurant charges, private car records, deleted messages recovered from an old tablet Grant had forgotten was still synchronized. One message hurt more than the others. Sloane had written, "Does she suspect?" Grant replied, "Claire suspects whatever I tell her to suspect." Claire read that sentence twice. Then she placed the tablet face down. Something inside her went very still. That night, Grant came home after midnight smelling of cedar cologne and someone else's perfume. He found Claire in bed reading. Still awake. The baby was kicking. He loosened his tie. "You worry too much." Grant kissed her forehead. Claire smelled Sloane on his collar. For the first time in their marriage, she looked at her husband and felt nothing she could mistake for safety. So she began collecting evidence. Quietly. Dates. Messages. Transactions. Promises Grant had made to investors using connections he believed came from his own growing influence. Then Claire discovered something almost absurd. Grant's newest obsession was Aurelia Fashion Group. He had spent 6 months courting bankers to finance a minority acquisition. At dinner one evening, he spoke about it for 20 minutes. "Aurelia is my entrance into real luxury," he said. "Once I get inside, people will finally understand who I am." Claire lowered her fork. "Who owns it?" Grant laughed. "Some private holding structure. Nobody important publicly." Claire looked at him across the candlelight. 7 months pregnant. Blonde hair pulled loosely behind her shoulders. The invisible wife. Interesting, she said. Because buried beneath 3 holding companies and a family trust was a controlling 62% stake. Hers. Grant wanted desperately to enter a kingdom his wife already controlled. And he had just begun sleeping with another woman to help him get through the door. The invitation arrived on a Thursday morning. Heavy cream cardstock. Gold foil. Embossed lettering. Aurelia, New York Fashion Week. Claire stood barefoot in the kitchen, one hand beneath her 7-month belly, reading the card while rain traced silver lines down the windows. Grant had left it beside her coffee. "I got you something," he said. Claire looked up. Her husband was fastening a platinum watch at his wrist. "An invitation? A favor, actually." He smiled. Not warmly. Grant had been unusually pleasant for 3 days, which Claire had learned was more dangerous than his anger. She opened the envelope. 2 VIP credentials rested inside. Her eyes stopped on the Aurelia emblem. Of all the shows in Manhattan, of all the rooms Grant could have chosen, he had chosen hers. "You want me to come?" "Of course." Grant adjusted his cuff. "I think it would be good for us to be seen together." Us. There was that word again. Claire almost admired the cruelty of it. For months, Grant had treated her pregnancy like an inconvenience. Now he needed the appearance of a stable marriage because several Aurelia investors would be attending Fashion Week. He needed Claire beside him. Until he didn't. "What should I wear?" she asked. Grant studied her body. His eyes lingered on her stomach. "Something simple." Claire waited. "Nothing too maternity-looking." Her fingers tightened around the invitation. "I am 7 months pregnant, Grant." "I know." His voice softened with manufactured patience. "I just don't want you looking uncomfortable in photographs." Uncomfortable. Claire understood the translation. Pregnant. Ordinary. Embarrassing. Grant kissed her cheek and left. 20 minutes later, Claire's phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. One photograph. Grant outside a hotel. Sloane Mercer beside him. Then another message. "Ask your husband who he's actually taking to Aurelia." Claire stared at the screen. No tears came. She already knew. That evening, she gave Grant the opportunity to tell the truth. "Are we going together Friday?" He didn't even look away from his laptop. Plans changed. "How?" "Business." A pause. "I need to attend with someone connected to the campaign." Sloane. His fingers stopped. Just once. Then continued typing. "Don't start." Claire felt her daughter move. "I'm not starting anything." "Good." Grant closed the laptop. And honestly, Fashion Week isn't the place for this kind of emotional drama. Claire looked at him. He was bringing his mistress to her company and warning his pregnant wife not to embarrass him. Grant walked upstairs without another word. At 11:43 p.m., Claire entered the study and closed the door. She called Evelyn Price. Evelyn answered immediately. "Claire, I need a change to Friday." "What kind?" Claire looked at the Aurelia invitation lying on Grant's desk. "Keep my name off the program." Silence. Evelyn understood faster than most people did. "You're certain?" "Yes." "The board expects the ownership announcement. They'll get it." Claire's voice remained quiet. "Just not until the final walk." Evelyn exhaled slowly. "And Mr. Holloway? He doesn't know." Another silence. Then, "I see." Claire walked toward the window. Far below, Manhattan glittered like scattered diamonds. Grant believed Friday was his entrance into the fashion world. He believed Sloane would make him look powerful. He believed Claire would stay home. "There's one more thing," Claire said. "Anything. If Grant asks security to remove me." Evelyn almost laughed. "He can't." "I know." Claire ended the call. Friday arrived beneath a cloudless September sky. Grant left at 4 wearing his best tuxedo. He didn't ask where Claire was. He didn't notice the ivory maternity dress hanging outside her closet. And he never saw the matte black credential inside her clutch. At 6:17 p.m., his final message arrived. "Don't wait up." Claire read it, then deleted it. A black car was already waiting downstairs. Her driver opened the rear door. "Fashion Week, Mrs. Holloway." Claire rested one hand over her daughter. For 3 years, she had entered rooms as Grant Holloway's quiet wife. Tonight, that would change. "Yes," she said. "Aurelia." And somewhere across Manhattan, Grant was stepping onto a red carpet with Sloane Mercer, completely unaware that the woman he had ordered to stay invisible was on her way to take her name back. By the time Sloane Mercer decided to humiliate Claire in public, more than 40 phones were already pointed in their direction. She just didn't know it yet. The Aurelia ballroom shimmered beneath suspended crystal lights. Champagne moved through the crowd on silver trays. Camera shutters snapped beside the runway while editors, celebrities, investors, and models traded air kisses beneath the enormous gold Aurelia emblem. Sloane stepped closer to Claire. Her silver couture gown caught every flash. "You came alone?" Claire rested one hand over her belly. "I did." Sloane glanced toward Grant. He said nothing. That silence hurt more than Claire expected. Not because she still needed him to defend her. Because once he would have. Sloane smiled. "I suppose that's brave." "Is it? Showing up like this?" Her eyes dropped deliberately to Claire's stomach. 7 months pregnant. Ivory maternity dress. No diamonds. No visible entourage. To Sloane, Claire looked like exactly what Grant had described. A wife who had become inconvenient. Grant stepped between them. "Enough." For 1 second, Claire thought he meant Sloane. Then he turned toward her. "Claire, go home." The words landed softly. That made them worse. A nearby conversation stopped. Claire heard the faint click of someone beginning to record. "You invited me," she said. "That was before plans changed." "You mean before you decided to bring her?" Grant's jaw hardened. "Don't do this here." Sloane laughed beneath her breath. Then she touched Grant's lapel with the intimacy of someone making sure everyone understood ownership. He told you. Claire looked at her. Told me what? That this isn't your world anymore. Grant's face tightened. Sloane. But she was enjoying herself now. You know what I mean. These rooms are built on relationships. Image. Relevance. Her gaze moved over Claire's simple dress. Women like you don't belong in rooms like this. There it was. The sentence Claire would remember long after the music stopped. Not because it wounded her. Because of where Sloane was standing when she said it. Claire slowly looked around. At the runway her company had financed. At the lighting installation she had approved. At the journalists invited under a media strategy carrying her signature. At the Aurelia emblem glowing above Sloane's head. Her daughter kicked. Claire almost smiled. No, she said quietly. I suppose we'll find out who belongs here. Sloane's expression changed. Just slightly. Grant noticed. He stepped closer to Claire and lowered his voice. You're embarrassing me. Claire met his eyes. Am I? You're making people stare. No, Grant. She glanced toward Sloane. You did that yourself. His face flushed. That was when anger replaced embarrassment. Grant raised 2 fingers toward the security captain standing near the velvet barrier. You. The man approached. Grant pointed toward Claire. My wife isn't feeling well. Please escort her outside. Claire said nothing. The security captain looked at her. Then at Grant. He didn't move. Grant frowned. Did you hear me? Yes, sir. Then remove her. I can't do that. The surrounding whispers disappeared. Grant blinked. What? The captain's hand touched his earpiece. I said I can't remove Mrs. Holloway. Grant gave a short, humorless laugh. Do you know who I am? Yes, sir. Then what's the problem? The captain looked past him. Backstage, Evelyn Price stood motionless in a black suit. Watching. The problem, the captain said carefully, is that Mrs. Holloway personally authorized tonight's security protocol. Sloane's smile vanished. Grant stared at Claire. For the first time that evening, he looked genuinely confused. How? Claire didn't answer. She simply adjusted the black clutch on her lap. Then every light in the ballroom went out. A heartbeat of darkness. Silence. And across the massive screen above the runway, one word appeared in gold. Aurelia. The first note of the show began. Claire leaned back in her chair. Grant was still staring at her. But now, finally, he was asking himself the question he should have asked years ago. Who exactly had he married? The first note of the show began, and Claire did something Grant had not expected. She let the fashion show remain a fashion show. She did not demand a microphone. She did not stop the models. She did not turn hundreds of workers' months of labor into scenery for her marriage. For 12 minutes, Aurelia's fall collection moved beneath the lights while Grant sat rigid beside Sloane, glancing at Claire every few seconds. Claire watched the clothes instead. She knew the hand-beaded coat had taken 200 hours. She knew the midnight blue gown had been recut 4 times because the drape was wrong. She knew the final ivory suit had been inspired by a sketch her grandfather had kept in a desk drawer for 30 years. Those details mattered more to her than Grant's panic. When the last model reached the end of the runway, the music softened and Evelyn Price stepped into the light. Before our final bow, she said, Aurelia wants to recognize the person who has guided this house quietly for years. Grant's shoulders went still. Sloane looked at him. What is she talking about? He did not answer. Evelyn continued. Our controlling shareholder has chosen privacy over publicity. But tonight she agreed that the people who built this collection deserve to know who would be standing behind their work. The screen changed. Claire Whitmore, controlling shareholder, Aurelia Fashion Group. The room inhaled as one. Claire rose carefully. No rush. No dramatic turn toward Grant. She placed one hand beneath her 7-month belly and walked toward the runway. Applause began with the staff clustered near the wings, then spread through the front rows. Grant stood because everyone around him stood. Sloane remained seated for a second too long, staring at the Aurelia label sewn inside the silver gown she had chosen for the night. Claire reached Evelyn, who offered a hand at the runway step. Thank you, Claire whispered. Then she faced the room. Grant pushed closer to the aisle. Claire. She heard him, but Evelyn had already passed her the microphone. Claire looked beyond the cameras to the pattern makers, assistants, dressers, cutters, publicists, and security staff ringing the room. My grandfather used to say a luxury house is easiest to misunderstand from the front row, she began. From here, You see the finished dress. Behind the curtain are hundreds of decisions, corrections, late nights, second chances, and hands most customers will never know by name. The room quieted. I stayed private because I wanted Aurelia judged by the work, not by my family. Tonight, I'm stepping forward for one reason. Ownership is not a spotlight. It's responsibility. She thanked the teams by department. She announced a new apprenticeship partnership with 2 New York garment programs. Only then did she lower the microphone. Grant waited for Claire to turn the microphone on him. She never did. She thanked the people who had built the collection, stepped away from the microphone, and left him with no argument that could make him the center of her moment. When she stepped down, he moved toward her. 62%, he whispered. You've owned 62% this whole time? Claire met his eyes. The controlling interest predates our marriage. His mouth opened, calculation already replacing shock. Then we need to talk about what that means for us. We do, Claire said. With lawyers, not with photographers. Sloan approached, pale now. You knew I was wearing Aurelia? Claire looked at the gown. I approved the collection. I didn't approve your date. Sloan flinched. Claire did not smile. Enjoy the dress. The people who made it deserve better than having their work reduced to this. Then she turned toward backstage. Grant followed. For the first time in years, Claire did not slow down so he could catch up. Backstage smelled of steam, fabric sizing, coffee, and the faint metallic heat of lighting equipment. Assistants moved garment racks through narrow corridors while models changed behind black curtains. Nobody stopped working because Grant Holloway had discovered his wife controlled Aurelia. That normal motion made his anger look strangely small. Claire, stop. She kept walking until they reached a quiet production office away from the press line. Evelyn closed the door behind them. Sloan remained outside for several seconds, then entered when Grant called her name. A fourth person was already waiting inside. Daniel Reeves, counsel to the Whitmore Family Trust and an advisor to Aurelia on governance matters. No leather folder. No stack of dramatic evidence. Just a tablet and a legal pad. Grant pointed at him. So this was planned. The ownership announcement was planned, Claire said. Your arrival with Sloan was your decision. Grant looked at Daniel. I have lenders expecting an Aurelia transaction. Daniel's expression did not change. Then your transaction counsel should speak with them. Grant went silent. Daniel continued carefully. Aurelia has not approved a sale of a controlling position to Holloway Capital. There is no executed agreement with your firm, and no one at Aurelia authorized you to represent otherwise on the company's behalf. I never said I was speaking for Aurelia. Good, Daniel replied. Then there should be no problem clarifying the record. Grant's face tightened. Claire had learned enough about law to know what not to say. She did not accuse him of fraud. Daniel did not threaten criminal charges. Evelyn did not declare his company finished. Aurelia would issue a short factual statement the next morning confirming that no acquisition agreement had been approved. Whatever Grant had told bankers, investors, or counterparties would be reviewed by the people entitled to review it. And the trust? Grant asked. We're married. Daniel nodded once. Questions involving separate property, appreciation, maintenance, or any written marital agreement belong in the matrimonial process. Claire's inherited controlling interest predates the marriage. Beyond that, neither I nor anyone in this room is going to litigate your divorce at Fashion Week. Grant looked at Claire as if waiting for her to contradict him. She did not. That was when Sloan finally spoke. You told me the minority purchase was basically done. Grant turned. It was moving. You said Claire didn't know anyone important at Aurelia. He closed his eyes briefly. Sloan, not now. You told me your wife was useful for a family connection, but had no real influence. Claire felt the words land, but she was too tired to bleed publicly anymore. She looked at Sloan. You knew he was married. Sloan's chin lifted, defensive reflex fighting embarrassment. Yes. Then we don't need to pretend either of us is innocent in the same way. Sloan looked down. Claire continued, softer. But whatever he promised you about Aurelia did not come from me. That distinction mattered. Sloan had made choices Claire would never excuse, but Claire would not use corporate power to punish a romantic rival. Evelyn added that Sloan's modeling engagement would remain subject to the same contract and professional review as anyone else's. No retaliation. No special favor. Sloan stared at Grant. So there was no guaranteed campaign? I said I could help. You said you had it handled. Grant's voice sharpened. I was trying to build access. Sloane gave a short, stunned laugh. By using your pregnant wife's name while telling me she was irrelevant. She removed the event bracelet Grant had arranged for her and set it on the table. I'm leaving. Grant reached toward her but stopped before touching her. She walked out alone. He watched the door close, then turned back to Claire. What do you want me to do? Claire thought about the question. Once, she would have had a list. Come home. Tell the truth. Choose us. Hold my hand when the baby kicks. She had asked for those things in smaller ways for months. Tonight, she said, leave the staff alone. Don't make another public statement. Call your lawyer. And tomorrow? Claire rested a hand over her daughter. Tomorrow you start learning the difference between losing access and losing everything. Grant frowned. What does that mean? It means Aurelia will state its position, and your lenders, clients, and investors will make their own decisions. She held his gaze. I'm just no longer protecting you from the consequences of what you chose to say and do. Evelyn opened the door. The final press photos were beginning outside. Claire walked toward them because she still had a company to represent. Grant stayed behind. Claire did not go back to the penthouse that night. She had already arranged to stay in a quiet, furnished apartment owned by the Whitmore Trust several blocks from her obstetrician and close enough to Aurelia that she could keep working on reduced hours. At 10:40 the next morning, Grant arrived there carrying flowers and looking as though he had not slept. Claire let him in because she wanted one conversation without cameras, investors, staff, or another woman standing between them. He placed the flowers on the kitchen counter. I made a mess of everything. Claire sat at the small table with a mug of tea cooling between her hands. Yes. He seemed surprised by the absence of comfort. I spoke to my lawyer. Good. The financing group paused the Aurelia proposal. I know. 2 investors want copies of every communication where I mentioned Whitmore. Claire said nothing. Grant dragged out the chair across from her. I can fix the business part. Maybe. I can fix us too. That sentence hurt more than she expected. Not because she believed it. Because some part of her remembered wanting to hear it months earlier. Grant leaned forward. I was stupid. I got obsessed with status. Sloane made me feel like I was finally in the rooms I'd been chasing. Claire looked at him. Sloane didn't make you tell me to stay home. He lowered his eyes. No. She didn't make you call my pregnancy bad for photographs. No. She didn't make you use my family name when you thought I had no power. His jaw tightened. No. Claire reached into the pocket of her cardigan and placed her wedding ring on the table. Grant stared at it. Don't do this because of one night. I'm not. She pushed the ring toward the center, not toward him. I'm doing this because the night showed me what the last 2 years meant. He looked at her belly. What about Lily? She deserves parents who can tell the truth. You're keeping her from me? Claire's eyes sharpened. No. And don't put those words in my mouth. Grant went still. You are her father. If you show up safely, consistently, and respectfully, I want her to know you. Our lawyers can help us build a temporary parenting arrangement after she's born, and we can adjust it around what she actually needs. Grant's eyes filled. Claire felt no triumph. This was the father of her child. She had loved him. Some griefs were too complicated for victory. But being Lily's father does not entitle you to remain my husband, she said. He wiped a hand across his face. Is there no chance? Claire looked toward the window. September sunlight touched the brick across the courtyard. Not because you lost a deal. Not because the cameras embarrassed you. If you ever become a better man, do it because Lily needs one, not because you want your old life back. Grant sat quietly for a long time. Before leaving, he picked up the flowers and hesitated. You don't want these? Claire shook her head. Give them to the reception desk. He almost smiled at the ordinary answer. Then he left. The legal process that followed was less cinematic than Fashion Week. Financial disclosures were exchanged. Lawyers argued over some issues and agreed on others. Aurelia's inherited controlling shares remained a separate property position supported by the trust and written agreements, while any disputed claims concerning marital assets, appreciation, or support were handled through counsel rather than slogans. Grant's lenders did their own diligence. Some stayed. Some walked away. Holloway Capital survived, smaller and less glamorous. Claire never called a single investor to ask them to punish him. Her attention moved elsewhere. Prenatal appointments, board meetings, and the terrifying privilege of preparing to become a mother without pretending her marriage was still a shelter. 6 months after the night at Fashion Week, Claire stood inside a renovated workroom on West 38th Street while a dozen sewing machines hummed around her. There was no runway, no red carpet, no champagne. The room had long cutting tables, bright task lights, shelves of muslin, and a corner with 2 rocking chairs beside a small refrigerator labeled milk only. In Claire's arms, 4-month-old Lily slept with her cheek against her mother's shoulder. Above the door hung a simple sign, Aurelia's second shift. The program had been Claire's idea long before the scandal, but motherhood changed its shape. It offered paid returnships to pattern makers, sample sewers, production coordinators, and junior designers who had left fashion to care for children, spouses, or aging parents and found the door difficult to reopen. Some participants were 30. One was 58. Another had spent 11 years caring for a husband after a stroke. Claire had insisted on flexible schedules, real wages, and on-site childcare support during training days. People don't lose talent because life asked something of them, she told the first group. Sometimes they just need a door that doesn't punish them for having lived. A woman near the back began to cry. Claire nearly did too. Evelyn stood beside her holding a clipboard and pretending not to notice. Claire's own legal case was still moving toward resolution. She and Grant had reached a temporary parenting agreement with the help of counsel and a mediator. He saw Lily regularly. At first he arrived with expensive toys a newborn could not use. Claire sent most of them back and asked him to bring diapers. The next visit, he brought diapers. It was a small thing. That was why it mattered. He was still capable of defensiveness, still tempted to explain away what happened, but he had stopped asking Claire to protect his reputation. Holloway Capital continued operating after losing the proposed Aurelia financing and several relationships during due diligence. Grant sold the Bentley because he no longer needed the performance of it. Claire did not celebrate. A smaller car did not make a better father. Showing up might. Sloan completed the work already owed under her contract and later moved on to other projects. Claire stayed out of those decisions. She wanted Aurelia remembered for its clothes and its people, not for the collapse of her marriage. After the orientation ended, a 61-year-old sample maker named Denise approached. I almost didn't apply, she admitted. Why? I thought everyone would see the 12-year gap and think I was finished. Claire shifted Lily gently. And now? Denise looked around the room. Now I think maybe I was paused. Claire smiled. The word stayed with her. Paused. Not erased. That evening, after the workroom emptied, Claire sat in one of the rocking chairs while Lily woke and stretched. Her daughter wrapped a tiny hand around Claire's finger. 6 months earlier, Grant had told the world Claire belonged at home. For a while, Claire had thought her answer needed to be standing on a runway while everyone watched. She understood it differently now. Power was not proving that she could enter a room. It was deciding what kind of room she wanted to build for other people. Lily yawned. Claire kissed the top of her head. You won't have to make yourself smaller to be loved, she whispered. Outside, garment racks rolled along the hallway, and someone laughed near the elevators. Ordinary sounds. Good sounds. Claire had walked into Fashion Week as a pregnant wife her husband wanted hidden and stepped onto the runway as Aurelia's owner. But her real victory came later, in a workroom without cameras, where a group of people discovered that being overlooked was not the same as being finished.